favor?
The reason why I am asking that is the food truck vendors that are coming down, we have some from Oklahoma City, some from Wichita, some from Amarillo, some from Garden, as well as local food truck vendors. And they are only here for the one day. They're not going to be set up during the weekend or during the week, and they'll return home that same night, or they'll get a hotel that same night and return home the following morning. I'm asking that, and alongside to continue the inspection piece, to partner with Keith and the inspectors at the City of Liberal to continue the inspection side with every food truck vendor that attends the event from June through September.
So the same as before with the park, we don't reserve the entire park, so it's still open. You can grant usage of it for his event, that's fine, but it's still public land, just, it's always, I oppose waiving the $30 fee for the vendors, but that's your decision. Everything else we can accommodate. We can put out the barriers, we can get some trash cans, we can do the rest of it, but that's, and you said the 24th, 29th, and what?
June 24th, July 29th, and August 19th. We'll be partnering with the Duck Festival September 30th with the Chamber of Commerce and United Way. So it'll be a joint partnership for Light Park that day. So no need to reserve.
Can I mention one thing? I mean, before, could we check these dates to make sure we don't have like a wedding reception at the pavilion, and because we rent those all the time for stuff like that. I don't know if somebody's having a wedding in there they want, or vice versa.
For sure. I've reached out to the rec with Matt Quint. They haven't gotten back to me just yet. So I'll follow up with Matt Quint in the rec department tomorrow morning.
So are all these in different?
Parking lot, or the weather, or it's just too hot, just whatever the case may be. We're wanting to have it regardless, and we just want to make sure we've secured a spot for any incident that might happen.
Just a question too is, in talking with your vendors, are any of them planning to have alcohol sales?
So I've spoken with Keith. I've spoken with my director of the Seward County Development Corporation. With this being so focused heavily on the Kids Zone Cornhole Tournament, we will not allow alcohol at this event. That's something we can look at next year. But as far as this year, we will not have alcohol. No vendor will sell alcohol. They're required to send me a copy of their menu that they will have for the event. If they do not have a city permit, or at the time a mobile food vendor's license, and I don't have a copy of their menu, they cannot set up at the event.
Okay. Well, and I specifically asked for Light Park because we do have a covenant from the original donors to the city that there is no alcohol there on that property. As well as various other city properties we might have to look at.
For sure.
Those, if that ever comes into play. So, okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I would echo what Rusty said earlier too regarding the fees. I understand the rationale behind him requesting those to be waived, but they are part of our ordinance and part of our fees that are adopted by our employees. There's not, I'm not aware of a part of the code that allows for those to be waived as it's written now. I'm not saying you couldn't make it that way if you wanted to modify the ordinance, but I think that fee is because of the inspection fee and cost of city personnel that have to go out there and inspect it. And it's not like we're making money on it, just to pay for time for the individuals to do the inspection.
They're doing all the inspections on site, so typically they would have to come to us, we're going to them.
So they will be doing the inspections on Saturday
Yeah.
on site?
Yeah.
And then are
That's what I
they,
was wondering, the fee is very minimal, really,
Yeah.
but, and that's what I was wondering then, we still have a cost involved.
Yeah.
Because if we're gonna have to inspect, so.
now we're still asking though for the city license and the mobile fee?
The mobile food vendor license is a 30-day permit from the city building inspector for it. The city permit is required for this event. It's a city business license. I believe it's good for 1 calendar year, and it's $20.
There's one for the business permit and one for the mobile food vendor permit.
Correct, yes, sir.
So the permit, how long is that good for?
The permit's for 30 days for $30. Is, I thought it was only 30. I didn't, are we still, I thought we got away from. Right, I'm tracking that, but he said the $20 business fee.
Business
License.
license.
We still require that?
Anyone doing business in the city of Whipple is required to have that.
Because I thought the we should fix that. But anyway,
We do-
so $50.
So they come for 30 days, and, I mean, their inspection is good for 30 days, or how long is the inspection good for? I mean, you gotta inspect them each time?
The inspection would be good for the time of the license. So,
So if they did the 30-day, I mean, in reality, then the July, August, they would be allowed to do one permit for 30 days then, because it's, so that we're requiring them to get 3 for 4 events. So it's costing them $150. Well, no, it's only $20, the annual fee, so 20 and 90, $110 is what it cost them to do four deals, because 2 of them were within the 30 days, right? So it's not a
It's
large
not
amount,
a tremendous burden.
right?
It's not, but back each time. Or they can spend $150 for those 4 events and it'd be the same.
I think it's something we need to look into, to address, multiple fees to do the same thing here, especially during an event that is very limited. But
But Keith, you're saying inspect them on August 19th,
no, they were
Right.
licensed and the license.
once
is-
per permit period.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they would get 3 inspections, and, I mean, those 2 would lap inside the 30 days, and then there's a 30-day period in between the others.
I'm kind of with Jose on that. It seems like if we're going to have them here 4 times during the year, we could figure out a way.
We're trying to host an event, why are we making it so much of a thing for
Yeah.
a person to come in?
City license and then the first, now if you have new vendors showing up for the other ones, then they need to be inspected, but I think,
And I don't know how we wiggle around that, I mean,
We
we've got an
don't-
ordinance.
You don't tonight.
Right.
You have to modify the ordinance regarding the fees, or you're trying to look at changing those, like, obviously, like I said, it's something you guys should modify.
But then by waiving those for them, are we saying to the coming in from out of town?
Well, we've invited the ones from in town as well. I mean, it's
Right,
not
but
like
I'm
we're
saying-
excluding anybody.
and they should already have this license.
Right, they'll have theirs, but that's what I'm saying, then we're
not
trying to
waiving
make
it.
it cheaper for the one from out of town to come in, and we should make it cheaper for them to come in. We should, I mean, it's a fair price anyway, it's only the $30, so I mean, it's not a large fee.
No, I get that, and it's like Rusty said, it's not a big burden.
Right.
We
I
want
mean,
to
it'd be
make
different if
it
we were
as
talking-
appealing for them as we can to come.
Right.
But on the other hand, I have a little bit of heartburn, where do you stop the waiving of
Well, you just said,
fees?
right, but I mean, to me, it's
Yeah.
easy to explain to them, this is basically a fee to cover an inspection each time, because you're only getting charged a fee when you're having to have an inspection, so in reality, you're paying the inspection fee is what you're paying, because you're gonna be required to have one again, so to me, like I said, I don't think it's a large expense. You want them to come, but they should understand that $30 really even covers that. I suppose the inspection doesn't take that long, but still. I mean, I think we're probably paying you $150 an hour right now.
That's only Damien.
Have you contacted Garden City and see how they did theirs?
Correct. So it has been a learning experience for both sides. They just moved all their costs into a higher fee for a mobile food vendor license. Just added the additional costs into the mobile food. For 30 days, be around $100 for 30 days and so on. But Garden City Downtown Vision, who hosts the event, typically their vendor fee that they charge, they just move it over to help offset the costs. And some of those vendors are allowed to stay the entire weekend. But again, like Jeff said, if the commission asked by some of the food vendors that are coming from Wichita and Oklahoma City and so on, I don't want to cause confusion or heartache when it comes to this. If we stand still with it, I will totally agree. We'll still move forward. I don't think it's a make it, break it situation for any of the food truck vendors. They're excited for it. The community is excited for it. It's an opportunity for them to come be a part of Liberal Kansas for the day.
Okay. I think we'll look into trying to do something like that where eventually we'll get the mobile food vendor. We're not asking for two different things for these people. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel.
Like Lynn said, we can't do anything with it tonight anyway, right? So
You can
change it in order. Yeah, we can not waive it, yeah.
Well, with the inspection being on Saturday, my only question or concern is you can't have a city permit unless you receive the inspection or unless you get paid. Or they're going to be able to take a check right then and there and then automatically process the city permit to allow them, or wait till the following business day for the city that Saturday. Because some of these vendors, the ones that are traveling from Oklahoma City, Amarillo might come in the day of. Garden City, I might be able to swing those food vendors to come in that Friday before. But again, if they're operating their business or if they're at a food truck festival,
we can take issue the permit.
So do we need a motion for those
The other part.
dates and?
Well, first we talk about the 24th of June. Have the actual date from 9 to 9 to exact. I guess you guys can address.
Are we only closing Main Street 2nd to 5th?
correct. So yeah, we're just closing that. And then I am asking for the alleyway or the side street by One Way Deli in the Seventh Adventist Church.
3rd Street
3rd Street, 2nd, 4th, and
to the
5th.
alley?
J Services will provide a dumpster.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Warren, any further discussion? And this is just for the closing of Main Street, right?
The streets, right.
4-0, motion carries. Then I'll entertain a motion for reserving Light Park for the 24th, June 24th, July 29th, and August 19th.
was authorizing the use.
August and September.
July, August, and
Does the
September.
Doug
June,
Festival
July,
already
August.
have September?
No, he wants June 24th as well, and
Oh. For backup?
that's right.
Authorizing the whole park or just
So. I
Correct, just the
think
park, not the building.
Once we reserve it, the rec center will just have to advise anyone who wants to do any of the other locations.
What do we do if it's already, there's already existing rentals there?
Well, that's what they need to verify.
If there's already an existing business, we will that day. I'll verify with Matt Quint again tomorrow morning, or get in contact with Matt Quint again to verify the schedule for those dates to ensure. Again, if it is, we will not reserve that park
Can we say
building.
subject to availability?
Yeah, I wouldn't say reserve either, I'd say utilize Light Park, because we can't keep the public from
Right.
being there. So maybe utilize Light Park on the
Fair.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. A motion by Vice Mayor Parsons and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? All in favor? And for that, or what do you? Okay. So then the last item was the
Fees.
mobile motion on that, or not?
Like I said before, you have to have, if you're gonna waive it, I think you need to modify your ordinance to give you the authority to waive it, because right now there's to waive it for certain events, and you probably need to, if you're thinking about doing something like that, you need to make sure you have parameters that are, you know, fair and effectively
Right,
utilized across the board for different events.
right.
And again, for other events, what events are you not gonna do it to, and then, you know, have those problems obviously.
Yeah.
Talk about changing the amount because we don't think that's an equitable fee, but I'm pretty sure when we adjusted those fees back when we went over the fee schedule.
Right.
Those are pretty consistent with most fees across the state, not even a little lower.
So all we really need is a consensus to not waive the fee, and we can move on.
Yeah, 'cause we
And-
really won't be taking action. I mean,
To look into those fees and how we handle it. Because it's not the amount that bothers me. That we'll be back here for one day a week on special events we're trying to have. And it's that image that liberal is difficult to deal with. So I want to see if other events in other cities are doing things different where they can streamline some of this process.
Maybe work
That's
on a-
my concern, not
work
the
on a
financial
package
one.
fee for events.
Right.
So-
So this vendor event period, which ours is 4 Saturdays of the year.
so what do we
So
do?
I will partner with Keith and get over some information to him to present to the next commission. To everyone.
Let me
I
ask,
think we can, what?
I wanted to ask a question for Keith then. So the ones that we do, the local that we do the 6 months, so we only, then also then, right?
I don't know that we've had any buy a 6-month license, most of the food trucks just do the full year, but we inspect them on
Think about is okay, what, since they're only not gonna be here all the time, but just certain days, that
Do it
at
year
least
for
they
year.
would be getting
Yeah, see-
inspected, and whether we make them do it once every, 3 times in 4 months when we're doing the others once a year.
I think I like your idea, maybe something seasonal for people who will only be here small periods. Because that's a good license, but it's for, because of the ordinance we just passed, it's not used yet, but that is for people who will be here all year long.
Yeah.
not for vendors that are gonna be here just 4 days.
So actually, we changed it because it was $10 a day, or it was something ludicrous. It was like $3,000 for 1 month.
Right.
That's why we changed it to $30 for 30 days. So we did change it for the folks who are just here for 1 day, or, yeah.
Okay.
And that fee was consistent across the state. Is, those, whatever we said, I forget now. I think it's 30, 150, and 250.
Okay.
But,
If you're wanting a consensus, I'm okay with us not waiving it today.
okay.
But if somebody wants to come back and ask us, we want to look at doing it, setting it up different, we'll just have to do that in a meeting, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree with that.
Works for me.
Yep.
So I move we vote on a consensus to not waive fees, correct?
You don't have to vote on it because
We
it's,
don't have to.
we're just gonna follow the ordinance.
We're just gonna follow the.
Okay, yeah, so we'll follow
Yeah.
our ordinance, and then at some point maybe revisit that, maybe for perspective changes. So
Yep.
I'll make that motion.
And did we need a motion?
No.
We don't, okay.
Make a motion.
No motion.
So, then, he approves it. So we have
I'm gonna
consensus
be quiet now.
to not waive the fee, but to review our ordinance. Okay. Is there anything else?
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to this event. I'm looking forward to the individuals who are traveling to this event. And my office is excited. We have a lot of small businesses in town, a lot of corporations who are excited. And I'm looking forward to continuing this on for the next 5 years, hopefully. So I appreciate it again. Thank you, commissioners and city manager.
Thank you, Davey. Appreciate all your work.
Thank
on
you.
this.
Are there any other items from groups? Okay, seeing none. Moving on to item number 6, the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as printed.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Commissioner Lidenbroker. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Moving on to item number 7, ordinance 4603, rezone 300 block Southwestern Avenue.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, this rezone is brought to you for a property in the 300 block of Southwestern that is being sold from the airport to Dollar General. The rezone was passed unanimously by the Planning and Zoning Commission on April 13th. The rezone does follow our future land use map in our comprehensive plan of the way the city should be going. I will let you know that I've been in contact with Dollar General. I received plans today for the building itself. We're working on it. I think we have it the lot address, so Dollar General's ready to come and move forward. So I'd just ask you to approve this rezone and get another business in the city.
Make a motion we approve ordinance 40. Oh, you're not done yet?
I apologize.
Oh, he's fired.
You should know that there is a change and a correction from the version that's in your packet. In section number 2 on there, we changed it to say that the zoning administrator of the city of Liberal, the one in your packet probably says the city clerk shall amend the map. We have changed it to now say the zoning administrator shall amend the map. And then it says to show that it is industrial park. That paragraph now says to show that it is in zoning district C2 general commercial.
Okay.
Okay, so make a motion we adopt ordinance 4603 with the amended version.
Second.
The east side, right along Larrabee, north of Harold, like a 15-foot retention pond to take care of the flood zone issue, hopefully.
And they'll have to do a map revision then, Is that where they do that? or-
Yes, I believe he's
Okay.
working with Earl's Engineering to get a
Okay.
Clomer through FEMA.
Unanimously approved?
He says that the zoning administrator shall change the map, and the one you have says that to show that it is C2 general commercial, and the new section 2 says R3 multifamily district.
So I do know the plat was unanimous when they approved the plat. I don't remember the,
Zoning,
yeah.
okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance number 4604 to rezone tracks B and C of the McCray Edition. There's also track D of the McCray Edition, is that also on our memo?
No.
Does it say tract?
Yep.
It's in the ordinance too.
Of McCray second.
Tracks B and C and D.
Well, B and C of McCray Edition and track D of McCray second edition.
Yes.
Okay. And then, as amended?
Well, that's what,
Well, yeah, he amended the other part.
With my change to section 2.
yes, and as amended.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Parsons and a second by, motion by Vice Mayor Parsons and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4-0, ordinance passes. Thank you. Now moving on to item number 9, Resolution 2397, authorizing submittal of the Housing Preservation Grant through the USDA Rural Development.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. This evening, I'm requesting to apply for funding through USDA for a housing preservation grant. It's a relatively small grant. It's not a full-blown rehab by any means, but it may allow us to do up to 10 houses with small repairs like plumbing, HVAC, and things that people may not be able to afford, and in addition to what we already do with our programs. So Erica and I put this together, met on it. We see a need for additional rehab funding.
And the budget, including the 25,000 from ones that sell, is that basically kind of a match deal so that you can get the grant?
It is. It doesn't require a match, but I think we have better odds of getting the grant if we put some funding in, and it allows us to do a little more. The USDA funds in total are $144,000 for the state, and
Oh.
they said we could apply for up to half of that. So I thought as long as we're doing the program, if we added additional funds, you know, it might just make it a little better.
Okay. And will that program be determining which homes to update, or will that be through Erica's office?
Erica will do that. She will qualify the homeowners. There won't be any rental or anything like that, or mobile homes, but she does that for her programs anyway, and has always done that with the self-help housing program. So she's really familiar with the process.
Well, it'd be kind of limited to low income and elderly.
Right.
I mean, that's what you're gonna
Low
target,
income.
right? I mean,
We'll target
unless they
low.
don't, unless others don't come. And, I mean, it's not specified on here though, right?
It's low and very low income.
Yeah, low and
Yeah,
very
it
low.
is.
Low and very low, okay.
Which, I mean, the dollar amount isn't specified, but I think Erica has those in her office, the dollar
Okay.
amounts, for what
Yeah.
qualifies for low and very low.
Okay, good. I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 2397, authorizing submittal of a housing preservation grant through USDA rural development.
I'll second that.
Okay. Have a motion by Commissioner Warren and a second by Vice Mayor Parsons. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 10, the floodplain discussion.
All right, Joe, can you hear me?
They're still muted.
Yeah, we can. Okay, there we go. All right. So as some of you saw the proposed change to the floodplain map of Liberal, Vice Mayor Parsons walked in my office as I looked at it, and he saw me about to have a heart attack. Because it essentially crushes all development in Liberal if this thing ever comes to fruition. So we discussed with the Kansas Department of Agriculture. They recommended that we reach out to the Nash and Associates, and I'm going to let them go because I'm going to completely slaughter what it is that they're proposing to do for the city. So is all on you. And thank you for, they're in Raleigh at a conference, so they're dipping away from their evening activities to talk to us, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. Rusty, we have a PowerPoint presentation that we can share, but it looks like sharing has been disabled on this Zoom meeting.
We're fixing it. Senator Maria, is it under yours? I can't see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said screen share?
Yeah.
If we can't share, that's okay. We can just talk through the information well enough.
We'll have the PowerPoint downloaded in case.
So go ahead.
Why don't you just bring it up and talk?
Okay. All right, well, we appreciate the opportunity to talk to you this evening, and I'm Maria Nealon. This is Joe File. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. So we're with Benish, and as Rusty mentioned in his introduction, we both have an extensive amount of experience with the FEMA mapping program. I've worked in the program for over 10 years. Joe's worked with the program for over 25 years. We're actually currently at a national floodplain managers conference in North Carolina right now with folks from all across the country talking about these topics. I will say that I live outside of Topeka, but Joe actually lives in Beloit, Kansas, and certainly understands some of the unique characteristics as we move into the western part of Kansas. And so we're excited about this potential floodplain mapping update project for the city of Liberal, and we've got some information that we certainly want to share, especially as we give you some highlights about what a mapping update project could look like for the city. So to give you a little bit of a background, currently the effective flood insurance study and flood insurance rate maps for Seward County, of course, including the city of Liberal, are dated September of 2009. As many of you know, KDA funded a base level engineering study for the entire Cimarron watershed, which started in 2022. That's when a kickoff meeting happened and the modeling
Maria,
was initiated.
One more time, try the screen share. We just made you a host.
Oops. Oh, there we go. I think, maybe? No. Okay.
What can you all see right now?
You two. Just you two.
see. It looks like we might be sharing.
To the regular screen? Try screen share.
Share.
There we
Okay,
go.
here we go.
There we go.
Okay, I think that. I just dropped it.
All right.
Okay. All right. Great. Sorry for those technical difficulties. Thank you for working with us. And you probably figured it out, but we're having a hard time hearing, so we may have to ask, or we may have to repeat a few times to make sure we're getting your questions and answering them properly. But anyway, so go back to where I was just talking about the base level engineering study done by KDA. The kickoff meeting was in June of 2022. Recently, there was a discovery meeting, which I believe a few of you were in attendance for, in February of 2023. A different consultant for KDA completed that BLE study, and the maps are well, an example of the map is shown here on this slide, where a lot of area within the city of Liberal appears to be added in what they're showing as the draft floodplain. We all recognize, I believe, that the draft maps here do not really portray the current or the true flooding conditions for the city of Liberal. So Benish, we have been engaged in some conversations since that discovery meeting because of our experience and knowledge with the FEMA mapping program and our understanding of Western Kansas characteristics. We've been brought into the conversation here to see what kind of mapping update project could be done for the city and what a potential scope for that project would look like.
So I just want to say here real quick, so what you're looking at on the screen with this map, those areas in yellow and green, which there's just a little bit of green, but mostly yellow, that's what your current floodplains look like for the city of Liberal. And honestly, I think in our discussions, we believe that some of these areas even over-predict what the true flood risk is. When this new project was done, that was kind of shown to y'all in 2023, those red areas were essentially added to the floodplain. So the way to interpret this map is yellow and green are what the current floodplain is. Yellow and red combined are what the proposed floodplain would be. And we all know this is just kind of ridiculous and absurd. And it's not really KDA's fault that this happened. I mean, this BLE process was crafted for kind of the eastern part of Kansas, but more so for the United States where riverine floodplains exist. I mean, if you think about areas with lots of relief, I mean, think about states that have a lot of hills, a lot of relief. Think about Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, states up and down the East Coast. And nobody really developed this process with communities like Liberal and in Liberal kind of when they did this. So areas with playas, areas that are really flat where water rains, it infiltrates, you get large areas of drainage area that don't ever even run off, even for something like a 100-year or event. I mean, a lot of these areas don't even contribute. And so it was really poor project scoping from the get-go. It shouldn't have happened. And so we've been engaged because we've kind of dealt with projects like this before, and we know how to back up and sort of apply a completely different methodology, something that makes sense for Western Kansas, something that makes sense for areas with playas and drainage areas that don't contribute, and areas where primarily the water just infiltrates. So we'll move on.
Mm-hmm. And along those lines, we'll just say that the floodplains in Liberal are predominantly static areas. There's not a lot of connectivity or open channels necessarily that continued downstream into the county. These are mostly static areas that are connected with underground pipe networks. And so that's an important piece to keep in mind as we move into the scope conversation. So this slide highlights what we would propose for a scope of services for a mapping project for Liberal. And as I just mentioned, that underground storm sewer network is extremely important because that's really how water transfers from one location to another location throughout the city of Liberal. And because of the way the terrain is and how flat that area is, these networks are extremely important because otherwise water would have to sheet flow across the ground surface if they're not able to be captured through the underground network. The city of Liberal does not currently have a GIS inventory. GIS would be the mapping platform for the modeling and mapping that we do as part of the FEMA projects. And so the first piece of this proposed scope would actually be the development, in part, of a GIS inventory for the city, capturing really the critical components of the infrastructure, the larger pipe networks, to really be able to do detailed modeling for the city of Liberal. We've also learned that Liberal has done a few projects recently since the last LiDAR was flown. LiDAR is light imaging detection and ranging. It's really the data set for the ground surface, and that was captured in 2018. There has been a few detention projects and some channel improvement projects since 2018 that some folks feel like is pretty important for the floodplain management for the city of Liberal, of course. That's why those projects happen. And so the second piece of the proposed scope would actually be collection of ground surface data for those particular drainage projects to make sure that the information that we would use in a model and a map would reflect all of those recent improvements that have been done within the city of Liberal. And then a large piece of this project, of course, would be the actual modeling itself, the hydrologic and hydraulic modeling for the city. 2D swim modeling is one of the most advanced modeling methods that can be done for this type of project, these FEMA projects. Swim modeling is able to capture and reflect the movement of water in the storm sewer underground with any overland flows. And it's really a dynamic system. It's a very detailed model that captures all of the information in a really refined way. And that would be our proposed recommendation for City of Liberal because of the unique characteristics of the city. To be able to do that model, of course, that GIS inventory of the storm sewer is a critical component. And then in addition to that, we would use refined land cover information and building footprints to build a very detailed and refined model for the city of Liberal. And then the last couple of items are the draft floodplain maps themselves. This would be data and information that we would put together in a really user-friendly format to be able to provide you and allow the city staff and stakeholders an opportunity to review and comment on that information. We can work through those comments, make tweaks in the model where it makes sense based on information that we gather at that review time. And then, of course, the scope has some additional components for project coordination and making sure that we're talking back and forth throughout this project, and then a final written report and final presentation. And all of those items within this scope, we've estimated the cost to be just under $170,000 for that project.
So we've got 3 more slides, and I will try and go through this fairly quickly so we can get to your questions. But so if this project is pursued by the city, then we would have draft floodplain maps for the city to be available for use by the end of this year. Now, they would be draft maps. They wouldn't be accepted and approved by FEMA. They wouldn't be adopted under your ordinance, but they would be there for the city's use. And first thing is the city can have confidence that the modeling and mapping behind this would be accurate. You would have ownership in those final products. We would work closely with you, with your staff, potentially with a stakeholder group, if you wanted a stakeholder group, to be able to do review of this. We would have conversations along the way. How does water move? What have people seen? What makes sense? So at the end of this, I feel confident that we would all agree that, 90 5+% of the area we would all think makes sense. There's always going to be some of those areas that are outliers, but I feel like at the end of this, we would be able to say that, yeah, 95% of this mapping makes a whole lot of sense. And I feel like you can confidently say at this point right now that over 95% of the mapping that you've currently got doesn't make a bit of sense at all. So we would at least be able to flip that script for sure. This new information could be utilized by the city immediately for informational purposes. So you've got two kinds of floodplains with your FEMA designation. One is Zone A. A lot of people call those approximate floodplains, but wherever you've got that Zone A designation, you could start using this data immediately for floodplain management purposes to make those decisions. So if those elevations go down, or even if the floodplain looks different, you could use the new elevations as best available data. The state of Kansas will tell you that, they would accept it. FEMA will tell you that, they would accept it, you could use it immediately. Now, for your other designation of Zone AE floodplains, you would not be able to use it yet. You could use it, you could use most restrictive, but you wouldn't be able to take somebody out of the floodplain based on the new mapping until you go through the process, if the zone designation is Zone AE, until you go through the process of updating those maps. So one way to do that would be to pursue a LOMR. And if we did this, there's a possibility that we could get new effective maps by January of 2025. But I'm going to throw out a little bit of a caveat or a caution here. The FEMA reviewers that review this stuff, again, they're used to dealing with riverine environments, hill country, hills and valleys, water that flows in channels. They're not used to dealing with this type of terrain, topography, or even, soil types. This is a very unique environment, and FEMA's not used to it. So I would anticipate a lot of back and forth, and that January of 2025 is probably the earliest it could be, but there would be a significant amount of back and forth associated with it. It would also require some additional funding to do this. I would estimate somewhere in the $35,000 to $40,000 range on top of what we proposed before, if the city proposed to go this LOMR route. However, the other thing is, if the city does this, KDA has already indicated and is pursuing a project in parallel to update Seward County, and they would be initiating that project in 2024. It would be a parallel project. City of Liberal, you would have entirely control of your floodplains, and in parallel, KDA would do their project. But once you got your floodplains developed, KDA would take those, integrate them into all of Seward County, and they would move that process forward towards effective mapping. Unfortunately, because of the way that process works, it would be roughly January of 2027 before those maps go into effect. So potentially, if everything went well with the LOMR, it would take an additional 2 years. Now, again, that's if everything went well in the LOMR. And again, I want to caution that FEMA reviewers don't really understand how to deal with terrain and topography like the City of Liberal, so it could be challenging. On the other hand, KDA has done mapping in western Kansas. I mean, they kind of approached us on this project because they knew the BLE mapping that they had was a mess, and they weren't any more happy with it than you all were. And so I think they maybe recommended to you all that you reach out to us because we've dealt with this before. So KDA does have some experience in how this will go, and does have the ability to get it through the FEMA process more smoothly, but unfortunately the trade-off is it would take longer. So finally, if the city decides, we're just going to back off this, we're going to let KDA kind of do their own thing, we're going to participate in the process later, and we'll deal with the floodplains that we don't like during the appeals process, then that is the other option you have here. If you do that, KDA has indicated they really don't have the funding in place to address the City of Liberal appropriately. So what they would likely do is de-scope their project that's supposed to start in 2024. They would rescope it in 2025 because they would have to get the additional funding, and there's not enough time to get it in the FEMA process right now. And what that would mean is that you wouldn't have effective maps until sometime in 2028. Also, I want to caution you that KDA typically doesn't ever fund the development of GIS storm sewer inventories, and they also don't fund LiDAR updates. What they would do is come to the city and they would say, we're doing a project, give us the best available data that you've got. They would go out and do some survey of culverts in open channel systems, but again, that has its limits in Liberal because we really need to get that underground connectivity in this. And again, where there's been some dredging of channels that have been done over the last several years, where there have been some addition to the sizing of the detention basins, you guys would still probably be responsible for going out and capturing that information because, again, KDA doesn't typically fund LiDAR updates. So there's pros and cons to this. I realize it's an expensive project. We're suggesting that it's going to cost roughly $170,000 if you want to take ownership of this project, and then if you want to try and accelerate the process, potentially up to another $40,000 to try and push it through a LOMR process. And again, I can guarantee you that if we go through this process, you're going to be happy with the majority of the floodplains. You're going to feel like it's reflective of the city. No one's going to be happy with everything, and I'm certain we're going to have a few people somewhere in the city that aren't happy, but the vast majority, I think you're going to feel like you got to participate in the project, you got to have stakeholders involved. We use stakeholder-informed data to drive the modeling and make sure that it's accurate and reflects what truly happens, and you'll be in control of that process. And again, if you try and accelerate it, then that's where it gets challenging because FEMA reviewers just don't understand it. We'll do everything we can to push it through and get it done quicker than 2027 if that's the route you want to go. But again, at some point it could be diminishing returns where instead you just use it as best available data on your zone A's, funnel it into the KDA project, let them have the headaches with, working back and forth with FEMA and ultimately getting your maps to go effective and save a little bit of money. If you decide not to do it, you're still going to have a seat at the table in the process, but there are going to be limitations to what KDA will fund. There will be limitations to modeling, and if we're the ones that do it, and I think we would still be the ones that would do it, we'll do everything we can to make it as accurate as possible. But I don't want to sit here and tell you that it's going to be just as good a product because we're not going to be funded to go out and collect some of these things that we're really going to need to make sure that we can get everything captured correctly in terms of what flooding really looks like in Liberal. So with that, I think we'll open it up to questions. I apologize. I think we just took about 20 minutes and said we would do 10. So I apologize for that. And you may just, the way we're able to hear best is whoever's at the podium. That appears to be the microphone we can hear the best. So if somebody would repeat the questions from the podium, that might be the best way we can hear.
Okay, so the 170,000 gets us effective maps by the end of '23, is that correct?
We would have draft late 2023 to start evaluating with your stakeholder group, and we would be refining final floodplains that you could start using as best available data. But again, those would not be effective maps. You could use them as best available data for your Zone A floodplains, which is roughly half of your floodplains in the city. But the other half, where they're AE or those detailed studies, as FEMA calls them, they have to go through the effective process. And in order to do that, we either have to do a LOMR, and that's where we said it would probably take till the beginning of 2025. If that goes well, I don't want to sit here and oversell how smoothly that might go. Again, FEMA doesn't understand this kind of flooding. And if we let it go with the KDA route and let them roll it into their project, then it would definitely be right in that January of 27 timeframe. I mean, that's a much more predictable timeframe, but unfortunately, it's also a longer timeframe. So you could accelerate effective maps by 2 years if it all goes well, but again, that window of how much you accelerate it by might get shrunk if it gets really difficult and challenging to deal with FEMA, which I anticipate it will be challenging.
Okay, so by the end of this year, we'll have draft maps that we can show developers. This is what we believe is the actual floodplain. I understand that it's pending FEMA approval, so don't get scared when you see the red, because this is our ground truth based on the best available data.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have those maps that, based on best available data, including your stormwater network. So we'll go out and we'll field measure all the pipes. We'll create a GIS inventory. It'll be something that you can use in the future beyond this project and beyond your floodplains. You can use it as part of one of your utility base layers as you continue to build out your GIS data sets. And also, and I don't know that Maria talked about this light detection and ranging LiDAR. Basically, we'll update the ground surface using a drone. We will fly a drone over the channel or the channels that have been dredged and over the detention areas, and we will update the ground surface to match those changes in topography that have been made since 2018 using essentially drone-based LiDAR.
Okay, and if we wait for KDA, when do we anticipate best available maps from them?
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
If we don't do this and we wait for KDA to do their Seward County project, when can we estimate getting this best available data, which will not be as reliable as what you're going to provide?
I think I heard the question, if KDA does the project and you don't participate, then what they produce will be the best available data. It'll take a lot longer, and it won't have some of this level of accuracy unless you could fund a storm sewer update and give that to KDA, and you could fund a LiDAR update, and then KDA may scope if you work with them, and I don't want to commit to what they may scope, but if you did that piece of it, then they may still scope this, what we're calling SWIM modeling, which basically just means a model that accounts for underground flow as well as surface flow in the same model that lets it share back and forth. And KDA may do that, but I can't commit to that. What I can say is we'll back up, and that discussion will be ongoing for the next year. And if you would agree to do a lesser part of this, then they might agree to take on some more of that. And then at that point, what it does is it costs time. Just to put it in perspective, and Maria, what the cost of the stormwater inventory of doing the GIS network of all of your storm sewer system was roughly,
I think it was just under, around 50.
I think it was right at around $50,000. And I believe that the LiDAR, the drone-based LiDAR updates were just under 40, maybe 35 to 40. So of this $170,000, roughly 85 to 90,000 of it is basically collecting that base data, and the other portion of it is really producing the modeling in the floodplains. So KDA wouldn't do as accurate of a project necessarily if they had to scope it on their own, but if you gave them that piece of it, which is still, it's still roughly half of the overall scope, but if you did that half of it, then it would slow the project down, but they may take it, and then you may have just as accurate of a project. You wouldn't be in the driver's seat the same way but you would still have a seat at the table, and you would still be able to participate. So there is a way to do it potentially that would get just as good a product, but you would still have to fund about half of what we're suggesting, and it would take until 2028 to get to effective mapping. And if that's not the question, I apologize. We're trying to hear the best we can.
No, that was the answer I wanted. That was the answer I wanted.
Okay.
And that's all we wanted to, unless you guys have something. Good. Nope. Well, they've answered everything.
Okay. All right. So
Okay.
Then we would,
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So my biggest concern is definitely the time issue, and I think having a little bit more control of how we handle this process and cutting 3 to 4 years off of that.
Yeah, and, you know, having worked in that development world, I mean, 3 years is in this, doing development, that's an eternity. It really is. I mean, if you look at having to wait 3 years before you have, you know, essentially the same data, that's, to me, that's the biggest factor in this whole thing, like Jose said, it's the time. And we end up probably with more accurate information anyway.
guys doing it than you will the other way.
I think it's worth it, because I mean, otherwise, we're gonna, KDA has spend all of it and have that control and cut 3 years off this process. Your guys' thought?
Is this economic development?
Street drainage and capital
No,
improvement.
street drainage. It affects economic development.
Yeah,
It will.
The street drainage and other capital improvement has got the
Yeah.
most money in it, so.
Yeah.
It's drainage, and drainage in the name made more sense.
I think, when do the new maps take effect? Are those now? With all the red?
No.
No, they're just the proposed ones?
So that's what he was, if I understood him correctly, Brad, that's not for public release,
Right.
Right. But if we did nothing, that's what it would look like in 2028 when it came out.
But KDA is going to do something
Yeah.
anyway,
Yes.
but it'll wait until then, and it won't be as detailed. Okay.
And if we didn't spend half of it to help them get to a better point, it would end up looking like that probably anyway, is what you're saying, right?
Probably a little better than that, but close.
If we do the other, I don't know. Keith may know more about what.
About half of it, like, when they built Seymour Rogers, they fought the fact, because that's a zone A. Zone A, FEMA has not given a base flood. The FEMA map doesn't say how deep the water's gonna be.
How many, where are all the AEs at? Are they, said we could apply those, this new maps to the A areas?
So like AE, Frog Pond and all the stuff, second and Clay, that's all
Yeah.
in AE zone. So we have a
Okay.
base flood elevation. So we could not apply, we could look at the two numbers and use the most restrictive of the numbers. They're trying to put in Charles and Larry and Hickory Road.
Is that A or AE?
That is A.
How about what we talked about today too, behind, Big R there, behind, is that A or AE? It's probably just A, isn't it? Because it didn't,
That is AE.
it's AE though, huh? Okay. But but Larry and Charles, where they're talking about putting houses, is only A, so it would actually help them then. So it does help with housing too then.
Okay.
Yeah, when they said the city of Liberal, are they stopping at the city limits lines, or are they doing a full panels around the city? And we get a little outside
Are you asking me if they're doing the extraterritorial?
Well,
The 3
in
mile?
a fashion, yes.
We just discussed the city of Liberal. We didn't even think to ask that question.
Well, like there's where they're trying to put in the Hassan addition to the southwest. Part of it has been annexed in, but it is in zone A flood zone, which this can potentially help with that if it goes, that's 100 yards outside the city limits, and we'll be coming into the city limits hopefully in the next year.
That's south and west of South Street?
Yeah.
Kind of,
Yeah.
That's a good
So
question.
are we just for
Yeah.
discussion tonight, or are you actually looking for if somebody wants to make something happen?
Yeah, there's a motion,
There is a motion?
or there,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah,
Or there's a,
He put a motion on there if we're interested in moving forward with it.
oh, okay. I failed the charge, I have a black screen. Can't remember, I didn't,
Ditto.
yeah.
So I would say, in here I put not to exceed 175. I'd recommend going up to 200 and trying to include the extraterritorial as well as the city limits.
Because KDA is gonna do one for all of Stewart County, is the way they were talking about it.
Yeah, and I don't think we need the entire extraterritorial boundary.
But maybe
These
the,
zones that are immediately adjacent to the city limits boundaries, I think it would be a good idea if we can get them to expand
North
just
of-
that far where there are flood.
north of Tucker Road, I mean, it'd be immediate area.
And the industrial
Some of
park to
those,
the
yeah.
east.
And maybe even, I'm trying to remember how that expanded out there when Shannon was looking at that area before he sold to, or the junior high out there. There's some area that was zoned for residential or whatever, maybe outside the city limits.
Yeah, it didn't go far west of that.
Outside,
yeah.
but I mean, the immediate area around it would be worth,
Because
because
the
that
newer
is our
one
growth
does,
areas.
Yeah. So I think that's a good idea, of making that motion not to exceed 200, and then we can talk to them about expanding that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make that motion to approve contract with Benish and Associates in an amount not to exceed $200,000 to be funded through street drainage and other capital improvement portion of the 1 cent sales tax.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Vice Mayor Parsons and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? 3-1, motion passes. Okay, and then moving on to item number 11, city staff and the water-lead copper survey.
Talk loud, because I cut the mic off.
Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Jose with the Water Department, and EPA has required us to do a line inventory of all the services we have in town. We came up with a small questionnaire that we're gonna send out. I don't know if you got a copy of it, if you can scan the QR code and see how easy it is. It takes about 2 minutes to do this survey. We'll send out either send it out with a water bill or do a mass mail out so everybody can get one and see how much we get in return. We got over 7,000 services that we need to inventory. So the most help we get from everybody back, from all the citizens, would be great for us. If not, we'll have to go do individual ones throughout the city because we have to have it done by, they were saying October of next year. But last conference that we went, they said that it might get extended because they're still trying to iron out some of the stuff that they need. But what we're looking here is what service or what line comes into your house. It's basically what we need. Because for most of the part, we know what's coming in from the main to the meter, but we need to know what's going in from the foundation of your house into your plumbing. And like I say, it has some examples of what the lead, galvanized copper, plastic is. So it's not a hard thing. We did it in English and Spanish so everybody can understand. And we'd like to get as much feedback as we can from everybody. And that way we can do our stuff, turn it into KDHE, and then KDHE in return will take it to EPA. And we'll be good with all the lead service lines that we need. And if we find something that we'll address individual ones as we go.
So this would be what enters the home, correct?
Yes, sir.
So once it penetrates the foundation, that's what we're wanting to
That's what we
find
want
out,
to
is
see.
what material penetrates the foundation?
Yeah, because most of the time we're 99%, and Ronnie would know, is whatever comes into the house, it should be what's on the other side of the meter from our side. I mean, sometimes when we do the new addition, we do it 5 feet of copper, but most of them take it out and go all the way to the meter with their pegs or whatever. So we know that anything from maybe 88, 89 should be pegs, because what they're trying to do is, all the soldered in copper that was used before 86, all that's what we're trying to figure out where all the best of it is anyways.
Did you happen to call like the Larry or somebody like that?
No, not yet. No, I got busy.
Because he might be able to give you a good idea, the older plumbers, is what they like to say, because I know since I've been in construction that it was copper, me and you talked about it the other day, but you could probably be able to,
Yeah, because I think
been
it
in
was
long enough, you might be able to tell
86
you an
or
idea.
87 when they banned the soldered in copper.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Jose.
Just wanted to let everyone know that preparations are being made at Adventure Bay for the pool to be open. I believe it'll open on Memorial Day weekend. Just kind of a heads up too, that we will be looking at some of the pumps. Probably Jose and I had a discussion that if we were to order them now, we might get them towards the end of the season anyway. So what we have is currently working, but we found out that on the blue slide and the green slide, we should actually have a bigger pump there to push a little more water, because I know those tend to run a little bit slower on the slides, but we're working to try to resolve that. So just wanted to let everybody know that that's should be coming up.
I just got a couple things. I'm working with Keith. The additional 40 acres we own at the cemetery, I'm working on finding a layout and a design and getting some cost on that. But unbeknownst to us, it's not even annexed into the city, so we're gonna try to get that annexed in and then get some cost on layout and design, because the way people are buying lots right now, I figured we had about 25 years. We might be lucky for 10. So we need to get that developed, how we want it designed or whatever. So I have no idea what that's gonna cost, so just keep that on your radar. And this has been not a good week for employees. We've lost a lot of employees this week. I got 4 departments, and between those 4 departments, we're down 14 people. So the guys are working as hard as they can, so if you see stuff you can't do it if you don't have the staff. And we're just not getting people to apply. I don't know what we gotta do to get them, but just be patient with us when people call and complain.
Okay,
Okay?
well, thank you. We were hoping we'd, hold off on losing too many employees, and even during the pandemic, did you have that much of a problem?
I've asked people all day today, what's going on? Why are we losing people?
None of them gave any kind of exit interview or anything like that to even help
I mean,
see where we're.
Honestly, it boils down to money. That's why they're leaving.
Right.
And I mean, I understand as a taxpayer and an employee, I mean, if you raise salaries, what has to raise too? Taxes. So I mean, it's a double-edged sword. And CDL drivers, sanitation, I mean, we get a full staff and then 2 guys quit because they go, you know, to a higher paying CDL job. And we got 3 at the wastewater, we've got 2 at the parks, which, you know, that's really unusual there. You know, the street departments, he lost a guy yesterday, lost a guy today. I mean, and he was already way short.
So 4 years ago, he had 23, and now he has 12. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, he's had 2 quit this week, so. I mean, we're doing, like I told him, we gotta do what we gotta do, which is the crack sealing and stuff like that. If we got any special projects, I mean, right now, they're just gonna have to wait. You know, I don't think he's down to any concrete guys left. So, it's just, I've never seen it like this before. And I don't know the answer.
I think we do have, I know the county's been going through a lot of this, and we definitely have a lot of competition from, you know, just the local businesses, including national. I mean, they can always afford to pay more than
Yeah.
the taxing industry.
Multi-billion-dollar companies, so it's hard to compete with that.
But
How short are you now?
Well, we've got a couple in the pipeline, but we're basically
I know fire's 3, at least, 3 short.
And they're almost always fully staffed.
And Kelly said he used to get 20 applications for every opening, and he hasn't had but maybe 2 or 3 quality applications in a year.
I mean, I don't know if they could ever do this, but you almost like the CDL drivers, these guys never leave the city limits. I mean, the state ought to do an exemption for, I mean, they do, they never leave the city limits, but you know, our trucks are so big, you still gotta have a CDL to drive them. I mean, I'm proposing the next dump trucks we buy, we don't get them with air brakes, because that's the only thing that's holding us, you know, from them guys having to have a CDL is because they got air brakes.
Right.
Unless you're gonna, and it's not like our guys drive 8 hours a day.
Right.
But, you know, if they have a wreck and hurt somebody, then we're on the hook for it. And you might need him 16 hours a week, but you gotta pay him like he's going over the road because he's got a CDL. I don't know what the answer is. We're getting 0 applications. I mean, you probably get more time off than most people ever thought of having with the holidays and, you know, the weekends. We typically don't work weekends. So I don't know if it's health insurance. I don't know. I wish I did. I wish there was a magical ball out there.
Do you know what our starting wages are currently?
The lowest full-time is still around 14, almost. The goal is to get it to 15 by next year, but we might have to expedite that. Our part-timers are anywhere from 8 to 12. Most of the ones I've been signing, but yeah.
Okay. That's definitely gonna be something we have to look at. Because, I mean, inflation's continuing at a roughly 7 to 8%, and, I mean, there'll be a recession by the time the Federal Reserve can fix inflation, so we have to figure out what direction we wanna do, or do we hold off to see if that happens, or do we go ahead and push forward?
And I know it's tough if you're paying $400 a month for family health insurance and you're making $15 an hour, I mean, it's really tough. You know, especially if you have a wife and a couple of kids, it's really tough. I mean, I'm not, I feel these guys, I mean, I feel bad.
Okay, as the budget's coming up, I think we can definitely look to see what we're doing now and what we're gonna do for the next year, since that's already around the corner in the next 2 months. I think it'd be a good time to look at that.
It just seems like our turnover is just unbelievable. Of course, you got us old guys who We're gonna be here forever, but.
All right, well, thank you.
I got 2 reminders. Graduation weekend is this weekend, so, Billy's Car Show is a week from Saturday. It's one of our big events for the parks in the town. That's all I got.
I know you guys do a lot for Billy on that car show, but that brings a lot of people to town, so I appreciate that.
Okay, anybody else? Moving on to item number 12, the city manager's report.
Okay. The mayor and I had to use the emergency spending limit last week. We had an air conditioner go out in City Hall in the basement, and we didn't want Scarlett's makeup to melt, so we had to get the HVAC in ASAP, so it was right about $20,000 that air conditioning is generally considered an emergency situation, so he and I executed that. We had a great meeting today with retail associates. We're making some significant progress on some anchors. A lot of those are showing interest. I can't say the names out loud, but we're very, very optimistic that certain parts of Liberal are going to look very different a year from now. Chris and I met with USCIS this week. They'll be here June 27th through the 29th. We're going to put them in the second floor of the Greer House, the facility we want to be the permanent office. They have some pretty alarming statements, though. They're looking to, because of their own internal budget cuts, which, by the way, their budget's $914 million a year, do away with biometrics, and also citizenship briefings. So that was extremely alarming. Like, we want more, and they're trying to prep us for less. I believe they have 17 interviews.
On the first day.
Yeah. So, anyway, June 27th through the 29th, they'll be here. We were talking about it. We have zero intent of asking you to raise the mill levy. We are going to go through the R&R process, because that gives us until October to file the budget as opposed to mid-August. And we've got to figure out how to spread around what it is that we have. We're going to have to, there's only 2 ways. You cut services or you raise taxes, and we already said we're not going to raise taxes. So we're going to have to figure out what it is we can do and what it is we can't do. If we need to privatize parts, then we got to privatize parts of it. A lot of cities, I don't want to do this, but a lot of cities will privatize their water and sewer, they'll privatize their public works departments, because then you just pay kind of a contract price and you don't have to pay health benefits, and it's significant savings. I hate that. I don't want to, the more of that we do, the more control we give up of what happens in the city. But that's the stuff that the staff is going to be looking at really, really hard in the next 2 or 3 months, because we got to figure something out. Those who are staying, we're working them to death, and it's only a matter of time. A pizza party doesn't cure burnout, so we've got to work ahead. The last thing, you guys approved 2 garbage trucks a month and a half,
In February.
end of February. That vendor has come back and said that they don't know when they will come and how much they will cost. So there was about $7,000 difference between them and the other company. So we signed with the other company, and we're expecting those in March, April. And they were going to honor their bid. So we approved Kenworth, and we're going to someone in Amarillo.
Freightliner.
Freightliner. Okay. And we're going to Amarillo to get them instead, because they have guaranteed delivery dates. So that's unfortunate, but that's the. I was with Daryl at the golf course this week, and he said some of his vendors are telling him, we're not even gonna bid anymore because we have no idea when stuff is coming and what the price is gonna be. He said, we can give you a number, but who knows? So it's a very difficult time to try to keep things afloat and manage the finances. But that is it, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Been any questions?
Did you check to see if they had any trucks without air brakes?
They couldn't even tell us that they hadn't even been put in the system yet. And they said, we can't guarantee the price. But you gave us a quote.
All right, well, thank you. Item 13, items from commissioners. Start with you, Ron.
Start down here again?
Yeah.
I don't really have much. I was telling Brad, I kind of feel his pain on the employees trying to hire people. Been wanting to add a couple of people, and I'd really like to find somebody. He wants somebody with a CDL. I want somebody with a driver's license. I mean, that's tough too. So, but it's really tough out there. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm lucky. I have a core of my employees that have been there for a long time and still have them. So, I guess I should be happy for what I have. That's tough. I appreciate everybody trying to make it work. I can't imagine trying to work half staff. But we appreciate everybody's effort, and maybe we can figure it out and get through it. That's all I got.
Just like to say thanks for everybody doing their job, and hopefully we get some staff in. But I've seen applications, I've seen stacks of applications, and half of them are not even filled out all the way. So the one guy misspelled his name, so he signed it one way and wrote on it. It was like, yeah, he's a quality.
If you get a stack of them like this when you're done, send them.
Oh, boy.
Send them our way.
We got stacks of them you can have, but you won't want any of them. But do what we can, I guess. You're up.
Okay, well, thanks to staff as always for your hard work. It's appreciated, it really is. Recognize too that Rusty's now been with us for just a hair over a year now, and it's I think it's working well.
Minus employees.
Pardon me?
We're hemorrhaging employees, but everything else.
Other than that.
Those are still here are happy.
Anyway, appreciate that. So anyway, that's all I've got.
All right, well, roughly the same thing. Thank you to all the staff for everything they're doing. It seems like the loss of employees is starting to kind of pick up just recently, so we'll definitely take a look into that. If anyone does want to say something, please reach out to your department heads. You can reach out to us as well and see what we can offer, because like you said, we're not sure, so we'll see if there's anything we can do to make it a better work environment or whatever can be done. On the other notes, thank you for everything you've done on trying to move forward with different businesses and both reaching out to those companies that are working with the floodplains. I know that's the biggest thing that holds back a lot of the development that we're trying to do, is how the floodplains will affect your cost and what we need to do to address that. So thank you to everyone working on that. And thank you for the year you've been here. You've done good.
I just need 2 more votes.
And then again, well, I guess we will have one more meeting before the deadline reaches, but anyone watching, there has not been a lot of interest yet on any of the local elections, so get people out there to start running for different offices, and if not, I get 3 votes, so just kidding. We'll figure out how to do that if no one else runs, but thank you, everybody. Item number 14, vouchers.
Make a motion to approve the vouchers for $2,223,128.74.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Lederbroker and a second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4-0. Passes. We are adjourned.